Best.Arcade.Games.
4-player arcade units. Quite a while ago, around the time I was 9 or 10, a new era began in the arcades. No longer would we as rabid arcade goers have to stand in line to play a fighting game or be limited to just playing with another individual. Around the very early 1990s, the gigantic 4-player arcade units started coming out, allowing up to 4 different individuals to join in and adventure away in many different games and variations. I'm going to be covering the main 4 arcade games I remember from my youth. Hopefully you've played them in the arcades of yesteryear as well. And no, Gauntlet doesn't count because I said 1990s and not 4-player arcade games in general. Easily the most well-known of the 4, I don't think any gamer from the early 1990s missed out on this one. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the first 4-player arcade game I remember playing. It was released by Konami in 1989 during the height of the Ninja Turtles mania, which we were also all a part of. I still remember quite clearly walking into most arcades and hearing the opening tune. I think Konami specifically turned the volume on the cabinets up just a tad so it could easily be heard over all the other noises going on. Doing the research for this review, I actually learned that this is called the quote, attract mode. And it does just what it says, which I never knew there was actually a term for what the arcade shows during the times when no one is playing it. The cabinet had 4 sets of controls, so you and other friends could all play at once. Unfortunately, I think I've only ever played with one other person. Go figure. Now, like some of the other games I'll be talking about in this review, depending on which slot you drop your quarter in determines which character you'll play as during the game. You could run into problems because of this at certain times, especially if you didn't know the other players and one of them was playing as the turtle you wanted to play as. I always play as Leonardo. I think he's the best all around. Or hell, I don't know, maybe all the turtles play the same and I just like slashing shit up with swords. Anyways, you throw your quarter in and off you go. At first, you spot a burning building in the distance, and it turns out to be April's apartment. So you start off running around in a burning hallway, attacking foot soldiers, dodging human-sized bowling balls, and funny little robots that say, "Don't resist us." Wait a minute. What the hell kind of apartment complex has huge bowling balls bouncing down the stairs? Maybe the landlord is just a crazy fucking psychopath who likes watching tenants trying to get in and out of the building every day without being crushed to death? In this game you have a few basic attacks. A jumping attack, an airborne slashing attack, and you can also throw foot soldiers around. Foot soldiers come in many different flavors. Some are just physical fighters, others shoot guns or throw knives. You make your way to the end of each stage and face a boss character based off of the series. These include Rocksteady, Bebop, Baxter Stockman, Krang, and Shredder, being the last boss. The game overall is pretty fun, not too challenging unless you count some of the later boss battles, which sometimes could have cost you at least $2 just to beat them alone. Lastly, the music and sound effects are all great as well. The explosion sound gets a little old since there aren't many differences between them, if any. There's also silly one-liners throughout like,
"Come and get 'em, yell brain."
Overall, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a fantastic arcade game, and is one of the classics from the early 90s. Next up, the Simpsons arcade game. Also developed by Konami, it actually uses the same exact game engine that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles does. Just this one features the Simpsons family instead of turtles. Released in 1991, this game is also very memorable, and was an easy choice for me to include in this review. The storyline in this game is that the Simpsons accidentally run into Smithers and some goons as they're robbing a jewelry store. They bump into each other, a diamond flies up in the air, lands in Maggie's mouth, and Smithers takes off with Maggie and Diamond in tow. Onwards to the adventure. Much like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before it, which controller set you choose determines which character you play as during the game. I prefer Bart, if for no other reason that a skateboard seems like a pretty decent weapon to attack baddies with. You run around fighting different groups of Springfield characters, and much like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you face a specific boss at the end of each stage. These include a giant Krusty balloon, and some giant drunk guy hanging out in Moe's Tavern. You'll have to excuse me if I don't know the specific names of certain characters because I haven't watched Simpsons probably like in 20 years or so, so my knowledge of the entire character base is a little short. You travel around various locales from the Simpsons universe like Moe's Tavern and the nuclear power plant, where you face the final boss, Mr. Burns. The gameplay is very simple yet very fun at the same time. I rarely get bored playing it. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before it, you also have a few attacks at your discretion. Your standard hit, a jumping hit, an attack plus jump hit, and if you're playing with 2 players, you can also get together and perform a super attack together. There are also a few minigames to break up the action. Just simple button mashing things, but they're still fun. Again, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there are also silly one-liners and stupid quotes when your character gets knocked out. Overall, it's a great addition to the 4-player arcade lineup. Captain America and the Avengers, the singular game of this review that isn't made by Konami. Released by Data East, yes, the same Data East that made Burger Time and the RoboCop arcade game. Great classics. Also diverging from the other games in this review is that although this game is another 4-player arcade unit, it doesn't matter which controls you play with, you can select any character in the game from any control set. You have the choice between Captain America, Hawkeye, Iron Man, and some idiot called Vision. Yeah, I can't say that I'm a big fan of the Avengers, but I surely don't recall a member of them being called Vision. At first, I thought he was Moon Knight, but no, I was wrong. Other members of the Avengers appear in the game that I do remember, like Wasp, Quicksilver, and Namor. Unfortunately, they're all in supporting roles. Out of the games I'm reviewing in this episode, this one, I think, hasn't really aged that well since it was released in 1991. You go up against Red Skull and his merry band of misfits including Claw, the Sentinels, called Large Robot for some stupid reason, Wizard, and others that I have no clue about. Each character has physical attacks, ranged attacks, and flying attacks. The majority of the reason why I remember this game mostly is because of the cheese factor. I'll be honest, this game is so ridiculously silly and stupid, you can't help but make fun of it while you're having fun. Just like the others, there's about a half dozen stages and at the end you kill Red Skull. The universe is at peace. The final game in this episode is a great way to end this review. XMen by Konami, released in 1992. This one probably has the largest amount of polish of any of the previous games, both in the video and audio department. Unlike the other games I've mentioned previously, you have the choice between 6 characters in this game. Colossus, Storm, Nightcrawler, Cyclops, Wolverine, and Dazzler, whoever that is. Basically, Magneto is just causing hell like usual, and it's basically up to your group to go after him and kick his ass. You go up against a bunch of other boss villains along the way, like the White Queen, Juggernaut, Mystique, Pyro, etc. You journey through a couple of levels and then you end up on Asteroid M where the last battle takes place. Why does Wolverine keep extending his claws over and over if he just stands still? I don't know. Anyways, the action's very intense, and much like the other games, the main group of enemies you go up against are the same character sprites, they're just recolored with different abilities. And you also have these big robot things that like pistol whip you all the time. Well, actually it's more like big laser gun whipping, isn't it? Also, each one of your characters has a special mutant ability that usually will take out everybody on the screen. And one of the cool things about this special attack in this game is that you don't have to actually be exactly lined up with what you're trying to hit. Basically, if you shoot the weapon to the right, anything that's on the right side of the screen, for the most part, will get taken out. Or to the left, depending on which way you're pointing.
XMen, welcome to die.
Huh? Welcome to die? Is this English in an arcade game now? Overall, when looking back on the 4-player arcade units, they played an important part of growing up being an arcade junkie and just the video game industry as a whole. Some of these games were given ports back in the early days to Super Nintendo and whatnot, but they fell far from where the original games were. Fast forward about 2 decades, and the original ports of the games have seen releases on the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live Arcade. If you want some really great nostalgic memories, go ahead and download them and play them again. They're always going to be classics. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Go check them out.